Welcome back to the Talk Shop in Studio 255. I'm Eric Henderson, and this show segment brought to you in part by the UPS Store, 514 Grand Avenue in Laramie, Wyoming, and H&R Block, along with Perkins Restaurant and Bakery. And how about Chano's Village on Boswell Drive in Laramie? They're open again. It's past June 4th, and we welcome that taste and flavor right here in the Gem City back to your taste buds daily, Monday through Sunday, right here in Laramie. Now, in studio, we have Lucas Freilich and Klaus Halbsgood. And thank you, gentlemen, for joining the program today.
Thank you for letting me return back to KOCA and be part of the Talk Shop.
Red carpet was out for cleaning, but the door was open.
Yeah, you'll learn to lock it one of these days.
Yeah, well, appreciate it. And Lucas, thank you for taking the invitation to join us today.
Sure, thanks for the invitation.
For anybody who doesn't necessarily know you in our audience, might you introduce each other here or yourselves, and we'll go from there.
Sure, yeah. Hello, I'm Lucas Freilich. I'm the chair of the Wyoming Democratic Party. I grew up in Gillette, Wyoming on what I affectionately call a hobby farm. That just basically means we farm for fun, not necessarily for any other purpose, but it was a great way to grow up. Wonderful background.
What crops?
Alfalfa, mainly.
Okay.
Yeah, good question. Sometimes corn, lots of potatoes.
All right. Right in the Gillette area.
Yeah, just north of
Just
Gillette.
north.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it's
Beautiful.
a great place to grow up.
And what's your capacity joining us today? Your invitation comes at a new elected position.
Yeah, I'm the newly elected chair of the Wyoming Democratic Party, actually.
Welcome and congratulations.
This is my 8th day, I think.
Congratulations.
Yeah, sounds about right. Thank you. 9th day.
Nice,
Actually.
very nice. And Klaus, for anybody who's not familiar with your capacity and perhaps a little of your background in the Gem City.
Well, I'm a longtime resident and longtime small business owner. I love Albany County. Like I said, I've lived here a long time. I grew up here, went to school here, raised a family here. Got involved with the Democratic Party a few years back. I've run for office a couple of times. I think I touched on some of these things last time I was in here. Last time I was in here, I was kind of like Lucas. I had just been elected the Albany County Democratic Chair. And boy, that was an exciting time. A lot of stuff came at you rather fast. And
Boy, do I know.
we had the Hageman Town Hall after that. It really hasn't slowed down much since then. Being the Albany County Democratic Chair keeps me busy. We've got lots of events going on. Maybe we can talk about some of those today. Lots of things planned for the future. And it's just enjoyable to be part of the community. I'm sure we're going to talk a little bit about that. A little further background, I was born in Louisiana to English and German parents, migrants, if you will. And I'm the firstborn American of the family. And so this country holds a special place in my heart, and I just want to give back to the community, be involved, and get as many people feeling about this wonderful place we live in the same way I do. So,
one of my favorite, I don't know, Lucas, if you know this, but one of my favorite Klaus stories includes the mention of, I don't know if it was his first campaign, but it was following his campaign for county commissioner in Albany County. Mm-hmm. Although it was not the success he would have liked, he had the success of a comment and gaining from a comment. Oh, yes. And that comment was from Pete Gozar, I believe. And Pete said this one single thing: please stay involved. Please stay involved. And Klaus, congratulations on doing exactly that. Exactly that. I think that learning is so important. And that's my favorite part about the Talk Shop is it's an opportunity to talk, to listen, and to learn. And I think that do we learn more from our successes or our lesser successes, right?
As an avid chess player, you learn way more when you lose than when you win. Believe me.
Far more memorable, right? So it's important to learn from those and take it and go places. And Klaus, you have remained involved. Your business continues to survive and thrive in not an easy economic time necessarily. What immediately comes to mind since you and I last talked are tariffs, or the existence of potential tariffs, and changing prices of supplies and equipment and parts. You do automotive services in Laramie, Wyoming, and what impact does that have on your mindset as a businessman and a political leader?
Well, that's a big heavy lift to answer that one. As far as the business is concerned, I've seen over the last few months, and tariffs kind of come and they kind of go. We never know which way they're going to be. You get 145% tariff on China, and then a couple of weeks later it's down to 35%. So my distributors are quite confused, and I've noticed that inventory is going down. They're hesitant to stockpile a whole bunch of things, so it takes longer to get parts. And even though it really hasn't trickled down to the parts that they're selling now, because of what they have in inventory is pre-tariff purchases, they're still trying to prepare for the future because they don't know what's coming. So I'm seeing about a 15 to 20% price
On existing, already prepared and ready shelf.
So that they're trying to get ready for it. And a lot of people are hesitant. I've noticed from other business owners that I've talked to, hiring people because they just don't know what the future is going to bring. Everything is kind of in flux, and this isn't just a local problem. This is a national and probably worldwide problem. The whole
It doesn't matter what memory, what point in time this memory occurs or was mapped. I never recall a fuel price surcharge for shipping. I recall them always on the rise. I never recall any of them being removed after they're implemented. Is that consistent in automotive?
Yeah, it's the same deal. Even if everything was to go up, let's say 50% right now, and that gets added to the cost of buying supplies or parts for customers, and let's say a year from now, the tariffs go down, manufacturing picks up, the prices for stuff become a lot less to manufacture, what we're paying won't go down. It very, very rarely. I've been in business over 30 years. This is my 4th decade, and I have a pretty good computer program. And so when I enter in the parts, it tells me what I paid last, and I can mark up the percentage that I need to get. Every now and then, I'll get surprised, and a part will actually go down, not by a whole lot. But they almost always, 95% of the parts almost always go up and never come back down. So, yeah, it's a vicious cycle. So as everything goes up, then we need to pay our employees, and people need to make more money to compensate for that. And it's just a vicious cycle. So when the big corporate businesses think you have more money, they raise their prices, which in turn, even though you might be making more money, you're actually worse off because you're paying more for everything, healthcare, supplies, food. It's just a vicious circle. And being in business for 4 decades, I've seen good times, I've seen bad times. I've never seen anything quite like what we're going through now. So I do worry about the economic future. And this is why we talked about it last night at our county party meeting. We have a lot of different voices out there, but our voices are stronger together. And so no matter what organization you believe in, what political party you're from, if we unite for the common good, and this is that sense of community thing again, we can get things accomplished. And it seems right now that our legislators on the federal level, at least, just don't listen to us. And that's why we got to unite no matter what side of the aisle you're from. And for Pete's sake, we're all Americans first. We're all neighbors. We're all here locally. We're all Albany Countyites, if you want to.
Yes.
Well, it's a team effort. It's not us versus them. We have to be together.
Klaus, you and I have talked in previous shows about issues local and state. Lucas, in your new position, Lucas Freilich, next on the microphone. Lucas, what state and local issues? Perhaps they're the same. Local to state, but perhaps they're different. Would you mind sharing with us your perspective as you approach this new position as Wyoming State Chair for the Democratic Party? What local issues are top of mind for you?
Yeah, there's quite a few, actually. A lot of what we're hoping to do when it comes to focusing on local and state issues is to draw attention to what the state legislature is currently doing, or in most cases not doing. We've been fighting for a lot of the same causes for a long time, and we're not seeing any build-up there. For example, there's no Medicaid expansion. That's a huge, very important thing for us. This is something I would really hope that we can keep focusing on. But we talked about tariffs earlier, and I want to touch in on that. It's like these sort of things, as Klaus gave many good examples for, it impacts Wyoming people everywhere, not just business owners, but customers and consumers, just average citizens, not just in Albany County, but across the state of Wyoming. I know in particular, I look around at my own family, for example, with my parents, and they have to now save in ways they've never had to worry about saving before. They're both retired, proudly so, I must say, after working hard their whole lives. And they're just two of many, many Wyomingites who are in the exact same situation because of these tariffs. But that's, of course, more of a national impact. But it would be great if the state legislature were to step up and to help perhaps their own citizens soften the blow a little bit.
Do you have an idea, one top-of-mind idea done on the direct impact that legislature could make in your mind to the benefit of Wyoming residents and citizens with respect to tariffs? Sure, yeah. Just keep costs down as much as they can in other places. Give people a hand. People don't want to get handouts. It's a bit humiliating, I think. So maybe modify or regulate those controls that might be more controllable within the state, necessarily, potentially. Not necessarily on products in or out of the state. Yeah, potentially. I think really what we're looking at is to make other costs more reasonable. For example, expanding Medicaid. That would be a huge step. Okay. Make education more affordable in the state, which we're already seeing a small reversal of these policies. Those sort of steps. There's very little that the state of Wyoming can do by themselves to impact the federal government deciding to lay off tariffs. But what they could do in Wyoming is make it easier in the state itself to offset those costs. And that can come in so many different forms. Outside of tariffs and Medicaid expansion, what other key topics come to mind for issues locally and statewide? Oh gosh, there's so many things that we can probably talk about. But one of the things that I'm really passionate about is education. And I went to a legislative forum in Laramie a few weeks ago. And someone asked a really good question to one of our only Republican senators representing Albany County. Was that the Albany County Town Hall at Laramie High School? Correct, yeah. Very good. Okay. And this question, a few weeks ago. I consistently go back to this question. I really admire it, actually. It's really interesting. Senator Crum would have been on the answer. That's right. That's right. He was the only Republican present. That's right. I should mention. The questioner asked, how much more can we trim the fat? We've been trimming the fat for decades. And this fellow, I believe, worked somewhere in the State Department, not the State Department, in the State Park Service, I believe. Don't quote me on that because I'm not really sure. I don't know. Are you talking about Senator Crum? No. The questioner. The questioner, yes. Correct, yeah. Sorry, go ahead. And it was difficult because of the mic issue and everything else, but I won't focus on what the senator's response was. Okay. But I love this question because it's exactly what I like to go back to when I think about our state legislature and how it currently functions. We're trimming the fat constantly, and it's to the point where what's left? I mean, how much more can we trim? And we're cutting property taxes at a time when we really shouldn't be, when public services are so necessary. And sure, we see these small percentages, and on paper it doesn't look that severe, but that translates to jobs. It translates to economic development, which generates jobs. And when you're cutting those services, you hurt the entire community. And because of Wyoming's tax structure, it's going to impact the state quite negatively, which is a whole other thing. But I think our state legislature should seriously consider looking at our tax structure. I'm not saying we need to raise more taxes. I'm just saying we need to be a bit smarter with how we're cutting them and not cutting them. Now, when attending that town hall, how exciting was it that people showed up? Super exciting. 5 of 6 elected representatives showed up. Yes. Now, I was thrilled. I was thrilled by that alone. The only one who was absent was Ocean Andrew. Mm-hmm. And in that, I was disappointed. Don't know what the reason was, don't know what the rationale was, but for the talk shop, we extend the invitation to everybody. It's open. Mm-hmm. It's an open mic forum. And the vision, no one isolated, no one excluded. And the microphones are open Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 9 a.m., and mutually designated times also an opportunity for that. We all have 168 hours in each week. That time's available to each and every one of us. What we do with it, entirely our choice. Not always our choice, but most of the time, our choice, what we do with it. And so I'm thrilled to have Lucas Freilich and Klaus Haubsgut joining us here today, accepting that invitation to bring conversation exactly this. And in learning about you, Lucas, and more about you, Klaus, each and every interaction, I don't know about you, but it feels great from my side of the microphone to have that experience. What's it like to be involved and to have that importance of being involved, letting your voice be heard, and making that difference to shape the future for both of you? Klaus, I think this was your question, your topic to bring up, but I share it with you first, and Lucas, I don't want to let you go without talking to it as well.
Well, this one's important for me. I got involved back in 2018. Actually, it goes back a little bit further. They wanted to put a bike path out in front of my house, which would have affected my business and take parking away from me, and it would have economically hurt my business. So I became a little bit of a community activist and organized people in their neighborhood, and we met at Linford, and it was not well received on my side of town, and that kind of made me realize that if you get involved in your community and you talk to your neighbors and you unite your voices, you can actually have an impact where you live. And this is the important thing. I hear a lot of times from my friends, customers, random people that I talk to, because I'll talk to anybody, that, why bother getting involved? It doesn't make a difference. Well, it may seem like that at first. And you may get involved and you may start pushing back against something and you see nothing changing. But you consistently go after the things that are important to you, and you organize with your friends and your neighbors, and you keep at it. You will affect change. I was a big supporter of the windmills. I know that's a contentious issue, but we had a lot of people that came out in support of it, and it's being built. It will bring revenue into our community. And this is something that we definitely need, especially with the cut in property taxes, inflation, everything going up. We just recently, I believe it was, can't remember if it was at a PVA meeting or if it was at a Albany County Dems meeting. We had the mayor talking about how the resources to LARAMIE being cut by the state legislature. We had the good fortune of having some windmill revenue to offset that, so it wasn't as big a hit to our community as it could have been. And the bottom line is, the more revenue that our state legislature takes away from local communities, communities are forced, the leadership of the communities, the mayors, the town council, city councils, county commissioners, they're looked at, as what Lucas said, how much fat can you trim from already trimmed budget? And so they either have two choices: raise the cost and fees for everything, or reduce staff. And this has a negative impact on our community. So it's important, doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on, that we come together and we let our elected leaders know what we're feeling. But this also predisposes that your elected leaders will take the time to respond to you and listen.
Or show up.
And part of the big thing as the Albany County Chair, and Chair Freilich may agree with me as our state chair, for us as Democrats, getting Democrats elected that will be responsive to the community's needs, all of the communities, no matter what you are, Republican, Democrat, Independent. Our elected officials, we don't serve them, they serve us. And so they have to be accountable to us. That means they have to show up. I noticed the last election cycle, we had quite a few candidates that didn't bother coming to the PVA for candidate night, didn't bother going to the League of Women Voters.
Didn't accept the talk shop invitation for all candidates to make public aware their candidacy, their campaign, their principles, their ideas.
And one of the things on the Minority and Allies Caucus that we talk about, I think I mentioned this the last time I'm the vice chair of that statewide caucus, and to pat ourselves on the back, we actually got certification a few weeks ago, so we're an official caucus of the Wyoming Democratic Party. But we talk about voter education, and it's really important, you register to vote. I'm actually going to be on a committee that's being formed by County Clerk Kayla White. It's a bipartisan committee, and I'm really excited about this. It's going to be 3 Republicans, 3 Democrats, and Kayla White's staff, and we're going to be looking at voter registration, poll watcher training, all kinds of exciting things.
Variety of
related
topics,
to
okay?
Elections, and it's going to be bipartisan. The chair of the Republican Party, the chair of the Democratic Party, we're going to be involved. We're going to be working together.
Beautiful.
It's a community, but getting people registered to vote, getting them out and vote for candidates that will show up and be held accountable, that's important. If we have somebody that's elected that never shows up, never answers your questions, are they really serving your interests or are they serving their own? And this is something that's very important to me. The parties exist to get people elected, but the people elected have to represent not just that party, but everybody. And if you don't show up and you're an elected official, in my opinion, you don't deserve to be there.
That's
Klaus,
the
I can't thank you enough for that comment. Lucas, my question right after that is this: did you ever miss a class in elementary school?
If I remember. No, probably not.
Did you have perfect attendance?
Yeah, I think so. My
I
parents
did
made
not.
sure of that.
I
if
did
didn't.
not. But I always expected that when I did show my face, I had to give a reason. I had to be accountable. I would say 99% or greater of elected officials feel no responsibility to be accountable for answering or not responding to any given inquiry that they choose. What's your observation? Is that similar or dissimilar? Have you found that consistent, irrespective of party?
Sure.
Have you found that?
I think that's a symptom of low voter turnout. A candidate or an elected official can get away with not holding themselves accountable if people just don't, if they know their voter base just won't show up. And so why would they care? Because the voters clearly don't, so why should they? Therefore, we encourage all voters of any stripe to show up.
We've heard the basement campaign strategy in the last 6 years.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Believe me, that's not a party specific scene. We've seen. I've attended League of Women Voters events. I've attended Progressive Voter Alliance events. I've been to Albany County Republican Party events. I've been to those places and venues where invited, and I've seen it across every one of those venues.
Absolutely. And if I may,
Please.
A candidate, an elected official, not showing up where they need to show up, or even when they're not allowed to show up, by them not being there, it goes against the very principle of what democracy in America represents, right? Now, Alexis de Tocqueville wrote about this briefly. The turn of the 19th century, when he arrived in the early 1800s to the United States on a prison research excuse. Actually, it's a fun fact, not the point though. He observed that American politics is so unique. Obviously, at the time in Europe, they didn't really practice this sort of thing, so it's very unique anyway, just as a base. But the one thing that is always relatable to this country from then and even today is the fact that Americans talk to each other. Candidates talk to people, elected officials talk to people, and crucially, voters talk to one another. And all this is very related because I feel like we're really missing that in American culture today. It isn't all this other nonsense. It really has to come right down to the fact that we're just no longer talking to each other, even about the hard topics. And that, I think, only fuels candidates and elected officials doing this so-called basement campaigns. Because why would they don't need to talk to anybody? Because the voters aren't talking to each other, right?
I took feedback that as a member of media, I take pride in doing the best I can. I can't control national, I can't control other, but I can control what I do. And in that, I look to make a difference. And in that effort, I was greatly challenged to remain silent when fielding the leadership, elected representatives' criticism in the last 3 months that told this group setting that media hadn't covered the legislative setting. They hadn't covered the environment. Yet, the talk shop extended invitations to every party elected representative. Every one. The statistics of those that even responded was pathetic. Failed overall. I'm talking not D, not D minus, F.
Yeah, that goes
Six legislative members, Hageman, Barrasso, each of them, that was 50%. Hageman responded, Barrasso did not. Each of the elected officials that were campaigning to be in the capacity representing all of us. That's the other thing. I can't stand when an elected official seems to not recognize we're all your constituents. When you're elected, whether I voted for you or not,
it's the job.
it's what you signed on for.
Right.
To hear, to listen, to talk, to listen, and to learn both directions. It's my responsibility as a citizen, I believe, a duty to also pay attention, to be involved, to make public comment, to prepare and give some value to that representative's opportunity in that representative capacity. Burns me with the flame this high to not have that happen respectively. And we are failing. And to me, one of the greatest opportunities for citizens, the three of us included, are accountability. We must demand, not accept. You cannot be an elected official and have somebody say, "Hello, Lucas Freilich, how are you today?" and ignore them.
Right.
It's not only discourteous, it's unacceptable. It's not only rude to lay out the blame for lack of awareness or initiative by media, but yet fail to respond at all.
Yeah.
Or to give a put-off, a bypass. I understand everybody's busy. We all have 168 hours in a week. What we make time for is what we prioritize for.
And that's the job, though, too, right? That's the job of our elected officials, to show up when they're invited to things, especially if they're upset about the media. What the better way to, when you're upset with the media, what better way to respond than just to talk to the media, right?
So what I hoped, what my vision was for the talk shop, is that it would be a microphone. Radio is word of mouth on steroids. Why would you not take that opportunity in doing that? I believe there are some top 10 reasons why. And we might collaborate, and I bet if we took an individualized test around three sides of the table, not looking at each other's paper, we'd probably find much consistency between that, much commonality. Your next topic I want to get to is building community, Lucas. Lucas Freilich joining us here on the Talk Shop today. We will give you an opportunity to answer this. We'll take one break, and then we'll be back a little bit fresher and finish up our second segment of the Talk Shop and introducing Lucas Freilich, Wyoming State Democratic Chair for 2025. How long is your term, Lucas?
4 years.
4 years.
Yeah,
Okay.
so 2029.
Very good. Building community.
Yes, that's huge for us. Democrats have a motto, and I'm sure Klaus has said this on your show before, but the big motto for us is we're here for good. Here for good government, here for good policy, here for good health care, here for good. It's just a great catchline. I love it. Yep.
Klaus, you get an A. You get an A on that. You have done that.
Yeah, it's
pass,
true.
fail.
Yeah,
You're
he does.
passing.
Yep, I think
Lucas,
so.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Right.
Go ahead.
It's all right.
Lucas.
The basing off this "here for good" motto is underlying all that is being there for our communities. If we look around and we realize the Democratic Party, I hope we were all sitting down for this, but the Democratic Party is in the minority in this state. Yes, I know it's shocking, but true. But what you do notice in all of our communities across the state of Wyoming are Democrats showing up. We're showing up at your local food banks. We're showing up at your local animal shelters. We're showing up at the local garbage pickup. We're showing up, not just for the protests, we're showing up for things that all matter in other ways too, to everyday people. That is where Democrats are making a difference. And we're seeing this happening in all over the place. And it's really heartwarming, actually. And this is where it starts with community building. Look how much we're doing for you today, and imagine what we can do for you tomorrow. It's definitely
I like that. Klaus, you have something to add in building community?
I'll just echo with what Lucas said. The Here for Good motto is just not a motto. It's a way of life for Democrats. We really do believe being involved with the community. I know a lot of my friendly Democrats around the state have done things like, well, besides donating to food banks, but also on the Christmas holidays, some dear friends of mine went out and served people that weren't able to go have a Christmas meal and have a Christmas dinner. And the state chair of the Minority and Allies Caucus was telling me up there, I believe it was in Hot Springs County, they got together for a Christmas dinner, and a bunch of the people that were gathered were complaining a little bit about the Democratic Party nationally at that point in time, and were just railing against it. And my friend leaned over to one of the people that were complaining loudly in the room and go, "You do realize that everybody here that cooked this meal, everybody here that served this meal, we're all Democrats. Merry Christmas." The Democrats show up. And one other thing you had mentioned.
We all like to eat. That's not a Democratic deal. That's not a Republican deal.
It's a human thing.
No matter what you're. There was no, hey, let's see your registration card when you came into that building to get that Christmas meal, and only Democrat. No, that wasn't it. Nobody cared. It was more about feeding the people of the community. And so this is something that, as a Democrat, I'm really pleased with. You had said something a little while ago that I want to touch on real quick. I don't know how quick you have to get to the break, but if you do sit down, and I've noticed this in my business, and I'm very pleased that I've been able to survive as long as I have and had the variety of customers. And I don't ask them when they call and make an appointment and they come in, what party are you affiliated with? And I don't care. But when I talk to my friends that have different political...
I'm in the Mercedes party.
Yeah.
I'm in the Benz party.
Yeah,
I'm in the car that gets me where I need to be.
I'm
in the Kia party.
That gives me grief party. But when I talk to my friends, we agree on most things. And regardless of what letter comes behind your name on your registration card. And that's really the frustrating thing for me, and I've been saying it for years. We have to stop arguing about the things we disagree on and work on the things we agree on. And let's get those taken care of. Let's get those solutions done. Mm-hmm. And then after we've done that, then let's argue like cats and dogs about the things that we have problems with. But we'll eventually come to a solution. Not everybody's going to get their way all the time. And I remember back in the 80s that I remember some politicians saying that if a bill goes through Congress and everybody hates it, that's a good bill for the American people, because there was compromises made. And we forgot how to do that in our nation over the last few decades. And it's an us versus them. And this is why community is so important. We got to end this us versus them, because it's us. We're all in this together. And when I'm driving around, we call it a rural state. I've heard it referred to more as a frontier state because we have really low population. If I see somebody on the side of the road in distress, having a problem changing their tire, I'll pull over and give them a hand. I don't ask them if they're Republican and Democrat and drive off if they tell me they're Republican. I don't care. They're my neighbors. That's the sense of community we need to get back to.
Yes, do you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
What about the big, beautiful bill? Are we going to get a lot of dialogue about the big, beautiful bill?
So
I don't hear conversation in a real, I don't hear it in a real fashion that helps me deliberate necessarily this or necessarily that. I would tell you from the Department of Governmental Efficiency, I learned more in 5 months than I knew in 12 years of where money had been being dedicated necessarily.
Sure.
Is that consistent for you guys?
Well,
not necessarily the big beautiful bill, but
sure.
That question, last question, is that consistent for you? Have you learned any surprises where money had been dedicated or alleged to be dedicated, or how it was?
In some cases, yes, for sure. But what's so beautiful about our government at all levels is that it's fairly accessible. But this goes back to what we've talked about already before. It's like these things are a two-way street. Government can only be so responsive if the voters want to participate too. And because voters are not participating, that's why all these cuts seems like, well, not all these cuts, but why all the spending seems like such a surprise. Well, I didn't know what USAID really does. What does that do? Or how about the National Endowment for the Humanities? I am not afraid to say that I lost my job because of the Doge cuts,
Right.
because people just didn't understand where NEH really did or what it meant for. And so when funding is cut or removed and changed around, it does, the end of the ball game here is that it results in people's livelihoods and their jobs and how they just exist in the world. And I think we're going to be waking up to that soon.
I love that. I was disgusted not long ago at the Harriet Hageman Town Hall. I was first disgusted when her reception was, I felt, rude and hostile as she just entered the stage to willingly come in front of citizens and guests to have that setting. I was worsened in my disgust by the lack of appreciation, and this I'm not fond of Congresswoman Hageman's response to people who had testified to losing their job, or there was a lack of sensitivity I felt in that. What I observed, you can go at various sources and see that if you weren't there. But as I saw children throughout the day involved in the process, they were gathering for good in the morning, and they were doing their artwork, they were doing their sign, and it was artwork. It was their pride work. It was specifically two youngsters that were up early, and they were with all the adults. Anybody remember what it was like to be at the kids' card table for Thanksgiving dinner, for Christmas, perhaps for your special family event? We didn't always make the big table. These youngsters were at the big table, and they were gathering for good. And it was not an ugly, it was not a negative. It was a really it was just a developmental bonus. It was to me it was a big win in that regard. And then by the evening, it wasn't 15 minutes into this town hall that ugly reared its head from directions I never expected, old, young, alike, and it was horrific. It was, my opinion, it should have resulted in some people being arrested, though that might have elevated hostilities. But nevertheless, we're talking about accountability, and fundamentally, showing up should be safe. Mm-hmm. Don't tell me that it's safe in this environment and safe in that environment and allow wrongs to be committed against one another. It is not MLK or JFK, neither one had to bring violence to bring change.
True.
And I look to those, Ronald Reagan, to me, wanted. My perception of Reagan is that 51% was beautiful. It was operating in the middle that won America. That's how you sweep the United States of America, is that.
Well, we really are a centrist nation, and unfortunately, too many of the extremes, because it gets you clicks, it gets you YouTube
divisions, right?
It is the extremes just igniting things. You see that in LA right now. You see during the day peaceful protest, and then as it gets night, and the anarchists come out and create heck and light cars on fire and so on forth. It's just absolutely crazy. We are very much a centered nation. Maybe some of us are a little to the left, some of us to the right. But the extremes get all the press. They get all the media. They get all the clicks and views.
Well, they're also the ones that show up. They're the ones voting.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And so
and
that's
why
where you
voter
have
education is important. And Harriet Hageman's town hall was my personal baptism of fire the first week that I was the Albany County chair. And if you need to go to break,
We're gonna roll the break, Klaus. You're gonna come right back to that, and we're gonna get right back to that. We appreciate you listening. This is the Talk Shop, brought to you in part by Wholesale Fireworks Incorporated, 1348 U.S. Highway 287, just south of Laramie. From your place to mine. Celebrate all year long with Wholesale Fireworks, that veteran-owned business just south of Laramie.
Am I good to